one of the mistakes that people make when you ask the question is to not begin where they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that can be as simple as reading, right? I'm going to get knowledge in preparation, because I thought I was going to be a coach.
Right.
So I started preparing to coach like in 9th grade. And I just think that's a mistake that a lot of people make is they want to start further ahead than they are. Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. It's hard to believe, but it is that time of the year. The holiday season is up on us. I do want to remind you what a great time, if you haven't already, to pick up my book. It came out in June, and you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. Amazon is good because Amazon's always trying to get rid of their books. The audio version is out as well, the Kindle version, however it is that you read and grow. Let me just encourage you. I really believe in what it teaches, which is just like the people of God went from the last place they wanted to be, enslaved, into their destiny, and we're all on that same journey. We're not always where we want to be, but where we are is not where we have to stay. And God created us for greater things. So pick up a copy if you haven't. And I'm looking forward to an incredible holiday season. And I do have my co-host with me today, Pastor Carson Gramling.
Yes, I'm excited to be here once again.
Yes, we're just this weekend, I don't know when you're watching or listening to this, but if you're listening as it's dropped, we start a new kind of our holiday run at the church.
Right.
And we're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to have a Thanksgiving series.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be good. Doing Christmas a little bit later this year. All the people who are like, we can't skip Thanksgiving.
Right.
This year we're not skipping Thanksgiving.
That's right. And we're going to have a big tree lighting service.
Christmas market.
Yes, that is, what's the date on that? December the 7th, I think?
Correct.
Or the 8th. December the 8th, which is a Sunday.
Yes. And it's going to be a full family event. We're going to have stuff for families, young and old.
A great place to pick up some gifts, maybe.
Oh.
And then drink some hot chocolate. Here's the deal. If you ever watch like Lifetime or Hallmark and you want to live it.
Hallmark.
What'd I say?
You said Lifetime or Hallmark. Lifetime is...
Well, it's a little darker, but but they have, if you ever wanted to live the Hallmark Christmas experience, that, my friend, is what we're going to be having. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great time.
And we would be remiss to not mention that the election season is over.
Yes, I'm sure there's a lot of people who can take a deep breath now. That time is over.
Yes, especially because it's become so divisive.
Yeah.
I remember, I remember in high school, the first election I really remember this is going to make some of you, because you're not even going to know who these people are, but was Jimmy Carter. Okay, he was the president at the time, and he was running against Ronald Reagan. And I remember I had a basketball, it's November, so I had a basketball game on the night of the election. I've always tried, for some reason, I tend to be the contrarian. And so everybody was like for Reagan, and I was like for Jimmy Carter. I had no idea why, other than everybody else was for Reagan.
Gotcha.
And Reagan won, I think, one of the biggest landslides.
I think that's irritate. You like to irritate.
Maybe that's it. But he won one of the biggest landslide elections ever. But we would vote in class to see who was going to win. We would, even in church sometimes for fun, because it wasn't as personal as it is today. Today, I'm sure there are folks who are changing where they go buy coffee. If somebody celebrated too much or weren't sad enough, or where they go to church, over the election. When
I was in high school, I remember the teacher, it was the day that Obama was being, what's the word?
Put into office?
Yes. And the teacher said they weren't going to play it just so it didn't bother anyone if they were, and I was just thinking in my head, I mean, none of these people voted. So I don't think anyone in this classroom, you're talking to a bunch of high school kids, I don't think any of them could be that bothered by whichever way the election went. But yeah.
But nowadays, everybody seems a little more bothered about everything.
Yes,
But,
it's very true.
But anyways, it happened, and we will all move forward. Hopefully, be able to move forward together, and see great things. I'm praying, because I think more important than any even policy the president has is to see revival, what we call revival, renewal. People, men and women, boys and girls, teenagers and college students, just give their heart to Christ, and that could transform the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, the enemy doesn't want to see that. But I want us to talk today. I thought we would spend a little time today talking about getting started. I grew up in a home where my father was definitely an entrepreneur. He would get bored. So I can remember he had a plumbing business. I remember that. He was an electrician. He had an electrician business. Heating and air. He had a heating and air business. He also bought and sold steel at one time. Drove a big truck. I think that's how he got into buying and selling steel. He had a sporting goods store at one time. He had a marketing company, basically, where he printed T-shirts and pencils and all of that stuff. Had a paper at one time.
He did everything.
He did a lot.
Did he run for office?
He never ran for office. No, he did not run for office. But he did all those things. So I watched that growing up. And each one of those takes a lot of risk. Because, he wasn't an independent, wealthy person. So it wasn't like he got a bunch of money handed down to him and he could just go and start it. And, if it didn't work, just start another one. Each one of them takes some kind of investment. You can't just start a paper. You got to get it printed. And you either have to have the money or you have to find a way to get the money. And then, of course, towards the end of his life, he loved the flea markets. Mm-hmm. He always loved them. That was his true. I mean, if he could have just been anybody, he'd have been a junk dealer. Like, what's that show that used to be on TV? Sanford and Son. That, I think, would have been his life.
Yeah.
If I could do anything.
That's his thing.
Because he loved that. And I remember even when we were little, every once in a while, we'd go to a flea market. Like in Tulsa, somewhere where there's a big flea market. And he would walk in on like a Friday, and it'd be like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he would buy the booth just so he could sit there and sell the items. He'd say, what do you take for the whole booth? And he'd buy the booth. And then he also had a quick shop. I remember one time, that's when he was selling boots. He bought a truckload of boots. And I was so excited. I was picking out my boots because I've always kind of been into fashion. And come to find out they were all left for the left foot. And somebody, there's no telling how many times those boxes full of all kinds of beautiful boots, high-end boots, but it was just the left foot.
So you got robbed.
Yeah, and I'm sure he passed it on down to somebody else. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know what happened to all those left-footed boots, but I found one I loved, and I looked and looked for the right, and I thought, these are all left-footed boots. So anyways.
Man.
So anyways, I grew up in that. And then we have been more not as entrepreneurial in the sense we did start a church, right? From scratch, 9 people in the living room. We did come here to start a young adult ministry. And I think that's a question a lot of people have is how do you begin, and how do you start? And so as we talk, if there's any questions that you have or that come to your mind, especially as you deal with young people, because they're a lot of times asking, what do I do? Do I go to college? Do I not go to college? Do I get a advanced degree? When do I actually start my journey? And, one of the things that I've discovered, and maybe you have as well, and maybe those of you listening or watching, is that often the dream comes before the opportunity, and a lot of times God will even reveal, he'll nudge your heart, he'll give you a passion for something, and there's not an avenue in which to get there in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the mistakes that people make when you ask the question is to not begin where they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that can be as simple as reading, right? I'm going to get knowledge in preparation, because I thought I was going to be a coach. Right. So I started preparing to coach like in 9th grade.
So somewhere you got a bunch of basketball plays drawn up.
I did. Notebooks and and I'm not saying that was a waste of time. I'm sure I garnered things as I was preparing, but I didn't, let me get a job first.
Yeah.
And then I'll come up with what defense am I going to run and what offense am I going to run and
Right.
how am I going to do drills. And, you know, I had a coach in high school who we didn't do a lot of drills. You know, we did a lot of, you know, running up and down the court, practice in that sense, stopping and starting and that kind of thing. Then I got to college and we did more drills than anything. And in college, you know, we had we came back from Christmas, we had a 6-hour practice. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. we're going to get here, we're going to work hard, and then we're going to be done. You know, in other words, I was thinking through all those things long before, you know, I had any opportunity to coach. I didn't know I was going to coach junior high girls or high school boys. You know, eventually I knew where I wanted to be. And I just think that's a mistake that a lot of people make is they want to start further ahead than they are.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with someone in my ministry where they just started a ministry that didn't exist before. So, you know, it's one thing to start as in you started, but it's already been.
Right.
It's another thing entirely to start something that was not previously. And it's been relatively recent since they've, you know, taken this role on. And they were talking about how they're tired and they're feeling like a little burnt out and all these different things. And I was thinking about how just recently I started a similar deal with young adults, starting, you know, to do some work there. And I think that the biggest thing for me in the starting process was learning it's not, we often want to think about what we're going to do once we're there. But I think, as you said, it starts long before you get to there. I think it starts with who do you need rather than what are you going to do. I think if you start with what are you going to do, it becomes very difficult and very overwhelming because you always underestimate how much work it actually takes to do that thing. And it's just not super repeatable. You know, you can only carry that for so long. And so I think it really starts with who do you need and finding those people, whether that's a business, a ministry, whatever it may be. It's okay. Or even families, you know, people dream about the family they want to have, but rather than thinking of how I'm going to have that family, it's, well, who do I need to make sure I marry in order to have that family? Right. I think it starts more with who you need rather than what you're going to do.
Being very intentional about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I mean, again, to me, this all kind of plays out. We go about it in the wrong way. We tend to go about it saying, you know, like you were saying, what do I need? Right. And so then how do I attract those folks? And we do the same thing with, you know, I need a space, I need money, I need all these things. And so once you realize here's what it's going to take in order to accomplish that, to me, how do you get those? Right. How do you get, well, it's by meeting the need of, you know, adding value, you might say, to those people's lives. Right. If I know I need somebody to help me, let's say write a book, you know, I can either try to pay them, you know, just financially, or I can try to, and there's always a financial aspect to everything that we do. Right. Money, you know, makes the world go round. But there's that sense of, I want to add value to that person's life. If they're going to help me do something, I want them to look forward to coming and helping me do something. So I want to give wisdom, opportunity, so as to, in some sense, it's a way to minister as I'm ministered. You know what I mean? It's not just about me. It's about, I'm going to add value to your life, and then together we're going to do whatever, you know, but truly building those relationships so that they'll last. Right.
And, you know, I don't want to minimize the need for personal growth. I mean, that's incredibly important when it comes to reading and being, you know, having the right conversations and watching the right videos, and all that is incredibly important. But I think sometimes I can focus so much on becoming the person for every situation rather than, well, I can just surround myself with the right person for every situation and be who I'm going to be best at being. You know, but that's a lot harder. In some ways, it's almost easier to just try and make yourself all those things. because with, the moment you include someone else, it gets complicated.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're starting a business, the moment you add someone, well, now you have to figure out how much they're going to get paid, and what's their role going to look like? What are they going to own? And if they do it different, do I need to correct? And it just can get very complicated. But I really believe that's the only way to kind of get to that dream that we all have in some realm. Like I said, it could even just be, your family, of what you want to see your family be. But in order to get to that vision, that dream, I think it's got to start with, okay, who are the people that I need? And what's interesting, the people you need are not always the people you want, I find. You know what I mean? Because if I need them, it's probably because they do something I don't do, and therefore we're not the same. So we're not best friends. Right. You know what I mean? However, you need them to get to where you want to be.
Right. Yeah. No. You have to fill the skills and that you don't have, and I just think we tend to underestimate the value of adding value. Even when it comes to if you're trying to get started and you need resources, right? And it's real easy. It's real easy for us to disempower ourselves, right? I can't start this until I get $20,000. But here's the thing, that money is out there. So I think the question is to ask, who do I add value to? If you're listening today and you want the manager position, or you want the whatever it is, the promotion, or you want to raise financially, or whatever it is, the quickest path there is to add value. We tend to think, right, I want to be a movie producer, but I don't have a camera. Okay, so how do I can't do it until I get a camera,
Right.
As opposed, if I'm hiring you, let's say you work at a church or a business and they want to do a commercial, and it's like, well, how can I produce that? How can I provide that? Can I use my phone? Can I borrow a camera? How can I make that happen? Because once you begin to do those things, you're at, doors of opportunity open up. Because there's always a huge risk involved. Because as a leader, right, as a lead pastor here, and watching my father, there's always lots of folks who would come in and tell them if dad would give them a certain salary, they could make a bunch of sales. Well, that never happened, right? And then it ends poorly. Because the moment you say, if you pay me this, I'm going to make a bunch of sales. Well, now there's a bunch of pressure. I'm expecting you to produce. If you're a consultant and you want the money up front, now you better produce, because they're paying you for that production, as opposed to producing and then inviting, and then asking,
Right.
where I can take you now, because you've proven yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Look what I was able to do without a camera. Hey, let's give me a camera or hire me a staff person, and there's no telling what I can produce. The risk is less. There's always a risk,
Absolutely.
But the risk is less.
Yeah.
And I remember when I came here, I came just to do a young adult service, and my goal was to try to do that as effectively as I can. But it wasn't at the expense of the church. It was like, how do I add value to Pastor Dan?
Right.
How do I add value to the executive team around me? And in doing that, doors of opportunity just opened for me.
Right.
And I think when you're getting started, that seems to be, the mistake, that everybody's got dreams.
Yeah.
And everybody's got things that go against them. Right. And difficulties and struggles. And some people spend their whole life looking for the perfect circumstances in which to succeed.
Yeah.
And the reality is we kind of have to take the responsibility for where we're presently at.
Yeah.
And begin where we're at.
Absolutely. Well, when you talk about that, I think of how easy it is to, like, we talk a lot about, when you're starting a company or trying to grow a company or business or ministry, the hard work it requires. For me, I try and think of it less of hard work, more of sacrifice. What I mean by that is you have to work hard 110%. But I can get so wired into, I'm going to work hard. Most people can work hard when there's a set time that you're going to work hard and it's not costing anything. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not hard if you set out an hour within 1 to 2 o'clock where you were going to be doing nothing. Now you're going to be, reading a book. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world. If you're not there, start there. But what I think is the most challenging is sacrifice. And when you're starting something, this sacrifice is great and the reward is few. You know what I mean? You're giving up a lot and not seeing a lot. And I just think that is one of the greatest challenges, is really deciding within yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to sacrifice? I'm sure we all know people who are talented, who are gifted, who work hard, but once 5 o'clock comes, that's out. You know what I mean? Like, now I go home and I do all the other things that I want to do. For me, you can almost argue the person who may not be as efficient, I'm not saying they can be completely lazy,
right,
but maybe they're not quite as efficient, but they're willing to sacrifice quite a bit. I think there's almost an aspect that they can accomplish more, And again, I'm not advocating for being lazy and being slow and not going quickly through things. However, I just think there's an aspect that you got to be willing to sacrifice. And early on, to move that rock, you've used the illustration before, it's like this massive boulder. And when it's not moving, getting that thing moving is tough.
It takes a lot of energy.
Absolutely. And so I think that it's just like, what are you willing to give up to see that boulder start moving? I think it's an important question to ask, especially in the early days of something.
Well, and you could even use a different word. I think there's two words, when you say sacrifice, another way of even looking at it would be ownership.
Yeah.
In other words, if you own something, you may be sacrificing, but really you're embracing that responsibility. It's like if you own, and I don't mean like in the sense of, owning your kids, but if you own their growth, right, then that means you may not go golf. You
right.
may go to their spelling bee, right? And so there's sacrifice involved in that, but it's the result of ownership, of I'm going to own, their future in that sense of partnering with them. And I think, like what you're saying, the same thing is true when it comes to anything. But when you're starting something, it's like, and we're all called different. So not everybody's supposed to start a business. So, but everybody, in some sense, whether you want a promotion or in life, you either are the victim, right? Or you choose to take responsibility for your environment and your situation. Doesn't mean bad things don't happen, but it means you're either living life disempowered. There's nothing I can do. I need the government to do something. I need my parents to do something. I need the church to do something. I need my boss to do something. Or I'm going to take responsibility. And you do that for your life, but you then also think about where you're working. And you think, how can I own? What do I need to own? And that will determine how high you go and how much money you make more than anything. There are a few jobs that if you do really well, you're going to get paid a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But even in athletics, right, they're the ones who get paid the most with endorsements and all of that are going to own the success of their teams. Right? Whether they're the quarterback or basketball, whatever the sport is. Now, those who can hit home runs are going to make good money, right? Because they're skilled more than anybody. Right. But they're not going to make as much money as the one who's leading their teams to victory and owning that kind of thing. And I think that a lot of times that just gets downplayed.
Yeah.
We forget, because if you own it, then you can't. You have to deal with the tension. Do I go home at 5 if the project's not done, or do I stay and finish the project? How do I wrestle with my family and my health and my job and my dreams and all of that? And I really think it's owner. It's whether you're willing. If you're willing to be the owner, you will make the sacrifices. And I can tell that in my own. There's certain things I've been a part of, and I'm just there. I'm there to support. I'm there, but I'm there when they tell me to be there, and I leave, when it's over. Mm-hmm. We were just on Daystar, and again, I wanted to add value while I was there, but whether or not that, I don't own it. In other words, I didn't stick around to make sure all the mics did right and all the, all that kind of stuff. And And I just encourage you, man, if you're listening, to think, how can I own what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Because that is always going to take weight off of whoever you're partnering with. And when you take weight off, you provide greater opportunity, which is what everybody wants.
Amen. That's good.
So, again, the tendency is to want it first. I think that's the biggest mistake that we make. We have false expectations. Maybe you went to school and you got the degree, and now you've got your first job, and you're like, man, I should, I got the, why is this not happening? And you have to prove yourself over and over again. I continued to get injured in basketball. So I played at a few different colleges, and every time I went to a new school, it didn't matter how well I had done in the past. It didn't matter how many points I averaged. It didn't matter how many games we had won. There might be respect, but the only way I could truly get respect, I had to earn that respect every time. As a Christ follower, I always thought every year in school, those first 30 to 90 days were so important to earn the respect of the folks around me, as opposed to just expecting it. And so I just don't let that discourage you. That's empowering. You can do something.
Yeah.
No matter what environment you find yourself in, no matter what situation you find yourself in, you have maybe horrible things that have gone on or have happened to you, but you have, given to you, I believe, by our Heavenly Father, the opportunity and the responsibility to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just take the risk, but don't be worried, about getting in too much of a hurry to the finish line. Take the step that's in front of you, not the step that's, way down the road.
Yeah.
And don't wait, to take that step. Be willing to take that step, and you would be surprised who God has already brought into your life, that the moment you add value to them, doors are going to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think you read the stories of the people who experience great success, whether that's in, the business world or in the Bible or whoever it may be, and you're ready to be there. You know what I mean? But there's just such a process of getting there. And I think, one of the big processes of getting there is being wrong. We assume that in order to be that person, we've got to always have the right answer. But they had to be wrong in order to know the right answer. Mm-hmm. And so I think, when you're wrong, being able to admit that, being able to move forward from that, there's definitely a long, grueling process of getting there. But the good thing is it's kind of guaranteed as long as you're willing to go through that process.
And like you're saying, Carson, you got to prepare. Be prepared for the opportunity. Yeah. And don't demand. I would even say don't demand it. I don't mean be a mat that people can. But I know when I came here, I didn't come to be the lead pastor. But I had to be, the way that I had value was in the parking lot. Okay. But at the same time, I was parking cars. I was reading books. I had taught in the past. I wanted to be a good communicator. Then when I got the opportunity, to communicate, it became more evident to more people of the possibility of what I could do in the future.
Yeah.
But had I not humbled myself, and it was humbling to go out into the parking lot, and again, not that there's not value in that, but just that tendency to think we moved all this way, all that we are sacrificing. Yeah. And, my biggest job is to help this person find a parking lot, maybe on a striped, parking lot. And, but had I not done that, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity that I have. So I just want to encourage those of you who are listening today. Don't be afraid to go into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Add value to the people, your family, the people, the bank, the place in which you work, and you might be surprised.
Yeah. And I would say, just really quick on that, I would imagine a lot of things you learned in the parking lot are not that different than what you're doing now. And I think that for me, the biggest learning is where you start is not that different feel. We think it's going to be just so wildly different, and it's not the same at all. And so we can't connect it. But that dream spot you want to be in, you're going to be doing a lot of the same things. Mm-hmm. You're going to be having conversations, leading people, making decisions, whether that decision is, should I park them in, this spot or this spot, or whether that decision is, should I let this go or, let this person go or keep them. It's a lot of those same things. So you can learn them, like you said, wherever you're at.
Wherever you're at, and persevere.
Yeah.
I was in the parking lot for a year. So don't get in a hurry. God's got you. I promise it. He does. Well, I hope that we've helped you today. If nothing else, giving you something to think about, to encourage you to dream big and start something. You know, God's given you something that maybe our business, your church, or our world needs, your family needs. And you're the one He created to do it. Don't forget that you can subscribe. We need some more subscribers. We're going for 50,000 subscribers.
Come on. It's happening.
If you just click that button, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's a huge help to us to subscribe, to give us a little thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down and leave us a comment. Tell us, what have you learned that has helped you to get started? I know we've got some incredible entrepreneurs out there that could really help us out in the chat. So before you leave, let us know, what's the number one thing that has helped you to succeed, to reach your potential, or share what's been the biggest obstacle for you in reaching your potential. Add value to those of us that are watching the channel. Don't forget, if you'd like to see our teachings on the weekend, you can go to potentialchurch.com, and we have a live stream that happens every Sunday night. And we are quite generous. We're always giving something away.
Always.
I've got some special shirts I'm going to be giving away this weekend.
Yes. And last week, I highly recommend people go and watch last week's SNL, because you talk about politics in I think, a very beneficial way, especially post election. So highly recommend everyone goes and watches it.
Yeah, check that out. Let me know what you think about it. And lastly, the Christmas market, December the 8th. December the 8th, we're going to light the Christmas tree. Hallmark is coming to South Florida, and I hope you will join us. It's a free event. It's going to be awesome. God bless you. Have an incredible day. Thanks for watching or listening. We're on all the platforms, and we'll be back next week. See you later.